Hello friends, and welcome to your yoga class today. My name is Jenny. This is a restore practice. So if you're unfamiliar with restore, it is the yummiest of the practices. It's a very slowed down pace, and there is a tendency to hold the poses a little bit longer. So we do like to use props to support us as we get deeper into our soft tissues, the connective tissue, all that good stuff. So a few props that you may want to gather. One is a bolster. It's just basically a big cushion. It's a little firm, but about yay size. And if you don't have a bolster, you can use couch cushions, pillows, rolled up blanket. Blanket is another nice prop. You can use this for cushion, for a little lift, a little support, and if you get a little cold in Shavasana, you can also wrap up in it. Blocks are also another good prop to have. I've got one of my trusty blocks, but since I only have one, a little substitute that I have created is it's just a yoga mat. It's folded in thirds, rolled up and taped. That can be a substitute. Also books, stack of books, one big thick book, or anything kind of similar to this that could maybe give you a little support, prop up, give a little height, stuff like that. So take some time to gather your props, put on something comfy, and we will jump into it. So we're gonna start in a seated position, but a little different than how we usually start. It's gonna be kind of a forward fold. Well, it is a forward fold, not kind of, it is. So we're gonna start in a forward fold, but how we're gonna set this up is we're gonna have knees bent. Doesn't really matter if they're hip distance, wider or narrower. But with the knees bent, we're just gonna allow ourselves to fold forward so that our belly and chest can be supported by the thighs. And then the arms can kind of drape down alongside, or you can hug underneath. You can even give yourself a little squeeze. If you do want to use some props to support you, you could slide some sort of cushion, your bolster, anything like that underneath the knees as you bow forward. You can bring a little lift in the booty as well. That is a nice thing to do, especially if you have tight hamstrings or a tight low back. That little lift like so can just kind of create a little more space. It allows you to tilt the pelvis forward a little further and just kind of allows a little more space for you to fold in. So we're coming into this bent knee forward fold, and the knees are bent enough to support us. So releasing the head and neck down. The head could rest on the knees. You could also bring in a block here, maybe in between the knees to rest the head. So as we come into this forward fold, in this first position, if 10 is your most flexible, your fullest expression of a forward fold, start at like a 5. Just come to about 50% of the sensation of stretching, 50% of your flexibility, whatever that looks like for you. So maybe it's bringing in both blocks or configuration of blocks so that you can get that forwardness. Or maybe it's bringing the knees in closer to be able to get this nice little supported forward fold, little self-hug. And when you get into this position, or as you get into this position, just take a few deep rounds of breath. Feel free to sigh out of the mouth and just release all expectations. Any expectations of yourself, any expectations of this practice, any expectations of your body. And just allow yourself to start to settle in a little deeper as you start to notice the breath. And as you begin to notice the breath, start to build your connection to the breath. As you notice it, notice the effects of the body. and just the effects of the breath on the mind. And then if you'd like to add another layer to your relationship to your breath right now, maybe focus on drawing the breath in and out of the nose. You could also direct that breath all the way down to the belly so that you're pressing the belly out. Maybe actually even feeling that belly press against the thighs as you rise and fall with that breath. And another layer of connection that you could add to your breathing is ujjayi breath, finding an activation of the muscles in the back of the throat, giving your breath that audible quality, a little sound to tune into. And continue to hold this pose, continuing to breathe, continuing to, maybe gradually bring in layers of the relationship to your breath, either through simply observing, breathing in and out of the nose, breathing deep into the belly, and ujjayi breath. It's all different ways that you can explore your connection to breath through this practice. And the theme that I want to work with today is this idea of sitting with both and, or this idea of being both and. And this is a concept that I learned about originally in teacher training. And how I want to apply it today is to the complexity of emotions that we feel as humans. And, oftentimes when we feel strong emotions, it's not just one. It's often multiple emotions. And sometimes those can feel contradicting. They can feel like they clash. And so this concept of both and is allowing yourself to sit in that contradiction, to sit within that clash, to be able to embrace the complexity of our emotions, the complexity of our humanness. A few examples, kind of what sparked this theme for me was last week I was verbally sexually assaulted online while I was teaching one of these classes. And that brought out a lot of different emotions for me. And one of the biggest ones was I was angry. Naturally, I was angry, I was embarrassed, I was just enraged at my attacker. And at the same time, I felt sad for him and I felt compassion for him and wanted him to get the help that he needed to work through whatever traumas he had that led to him doing this, which I'm sure is not an isolated incident. So for me, it was embracing this, sitting with this anger and compassion towards my attacker. Another example is, in our political environment. It is possible for us to feel patriotic, to want to embrace what it truly means to live the American dream, the freedom that some of us, under the guise of all of us, should be receiving or should be able to create the life that we want. It's okay to embrace that and to be angry at the systemic oppression, to be angry at the men who abuse their power and who abuse the system for their own political gain or for their own gain in general. So it is possible to be both patriotic and angry at the system. So those are just two little examples of embracing both and the complexities of our emotions, which helps us to embrace the complexities of ourselves. So however that resonates with you, that's kind of what we're working with today. So continue in this forward fold, connecting to your breath, checking in with your body, and checking in with your emotions. We'll take a few more rounds of breath here, opening up through the backside. Maybe imagine breathing into the backside of your lungs. Imagine the beating of your heart through the back view of your heart. Think of expanding the back ribs. Beautiful work. As you feel ready, we're just gonna slowly start to raise ourselves just to a little seat. Just coming up and out of our gentle supported forward fold. Go ahead and remove any props that you may have been using. If you're sitting up on a blanket or a bolster, or if you're sitting up on a prop, it's okay to leave that there if that feels comfortable for you. And then we're just gonna bring the hands back behind us, plant the feet, maybe bringing the knees in a little closer to the glutes, and then we'll just take some windshield wipers side to side. Just a little loosening through the hips, loosening in the back. Awesome work. A few more rounds here, just exploring how this feels. Maybe even getting yourself a little bit of a massage in the glutes. Beautiful work. Now we're going to continue to work with some forward folds, but taking different variations with the legs. So as I showed you in that first forward fold, there are lots of ways that you can support yourself, and there is no reason that the knees have to be completely straight and locked out. That's not a requirement for doing these forward folds. So know that you can always bring that support under the knees. You can always keep the knees bent. So for the next round of our forward fold, we're going to draw the right knee in towards the chest, and then we're going to open up that knee, placing the right foot on the inside of the left thigh. So kind of creating a tree shape, or how as tree would look in the lower body. And it doesn't matter where that right foot is placed. It can be down by the ankle, calf, knee, inner thigh, or whatever feels right for you. Take some time to adjust through the sits bones, maybe remove any flesh that may be there, just so you can get a solid connection down to those sits bones and ground down through those sits bones. Even if you're sitting up on a prop or sitting up on a blanket, on a cushion, still get that solid connection so the hips are nice and squared. And then with the left toes, sorry, teaching mirrored, we're gonna flex those back. If the leg is extended, if the knee is bent, then just keep it as is. But if the leg is extended, flex the toes back so you have some activity there to help protect through the joint. And then we're gonna bring this into a forward fold. So we're gonna lift up through the spine and then allow ourselves to drape forward. Now again, we are going to be holding this, so you are welcome to bring in props. You could bring in a support underneath the knee if extending out through the knee doesn't feel awesome. You can also do a configuration of your props so that you can be fully supported in your forward fold. So maybe there's a stack of pillows, some sort of block usage there. And again, since we came to about 50% of our flexibility in our first round, maybe stick with that, or maybe bump it up to 60% if that feels good. So we're not just going full bore into this. Take your time, allow your body to ease into this. Another thing that's nice is to support that bended knee. So that right knee that is bent, you can slide a block, a book, something underneath to kind of offer it a little support, especially if there's some tension in the knee. So finding your expression, whatever it looks like in your body, of this tree-legged forward fold, one-legged forward fold, however you want to describe this. Releasing the head and neck down, either just letting it hang out there in space or bringing in a prop of some sort to support the head and neck. Continue to feel into the body, to connect to the breath. And to embrace any emotions that come up for you. We will be focusing a little bit on the hips, kind of the hip, pelvic, low back, upper leg area. And this is a common place to store emotions, to store traumas, to store stress. So as we hold these poses, there's going to be a natural release in the body that may allow us to move a little deeper. There may also be an energetic release in the body. So stay aware of what's coming up for you. Stay aware of your emotions. And allow yourself to embrace those. Even the seemingly contradicting ones, they're not seemingly complex, they are complex. Allowing yourself to be both and. We'll take about 3 more rounds of breath in this single-legged forward fold. And as you feel ready, we'll gently, nice and slow, start to come back up to seat. And we'll take a little counter stretch. So if you do have something supporting that knee, go ahead and remove it. It's always a constant shuffle of props in a restore class. And for a little counter stretch here, we're gonna bring the right hand back behind us for a little support. And then you can just lean back. Actually, if you want, you can just lean back on both hands. Maybe find a little opening in the chest. Maybe lifting the gaze. You can stay here, or if you want, find a little lift in the pelvis and come up onto that right knee and work to put that left foot on the ground. You can also kind of swing that left arm around. So we find this lift and extension, so it's kind of a variation of a wild thing. So again, we're either hips down, opening through the chest, or hips raised, and a little more opening in the hips and low back. And when you feel ready, releasing down, bringing that right knee up towards the chest, and we'll take a little gentle twisting here. So you can either keep that right foot on the ground, where it is on the right side, or you could cross it over, whichever feels best for you. We're gonna inhale to lengthen up through the crown of the head. The right hand will come back behind you for support. On the exhale, start to twist, opening up through that right shoulder. That left elbow could come and hook onto the right knee. Again, 50 to 60% of your flexibility. So we're not cranking ourselves all the way over. We're not wringing ourselves out. Just getting a nice, gentle twist through the spine, opening across the chest. And I'm getting a stretch in my right hip as well. So just notice where you feel the sensation. And as long as it's not creating any major discomfort that feels like pinching, burning, tearing, anything that's gonna cause damage or harm or injury, back off. If it's simply uncomfortable, stick with it. Breathe through it. Step outside your comfort zone. See what happens. Just 2 more rounds of breath here. Continuing to breathe into the belly. It will be a different sensation breathing into the belly when we're all twisted up. And as you feel ready to come out, we'll inhale to lengthen up through the spine, and then on the exhale, we'll untwist. Awesome work. You can go ahead and uncross and stretch out through that right leg, maybe shake out through the legs. If those windshield wipers, got the hiccups. If the windshield wipers feel good, going side to side, feel free to take that. You could also take some seated cat-cow, knees bent, feet planted, grabbing onto the knees, working through some spinal articulation. Inhale, lifting through the chest, opening up, and exhale, rounding out. Or any other movements between sides that would feel awesome for you. Beautiful work. And then we'll start to set up our little tree forward fold on the other side. So we'll extend through the right leg, drawing the left knee in towards the chest. And then we'll drop that left knee open, creating the tree shape with our legs. And again, it doesn't matter where that left foot or right foot is placed along that left inner leg. Whatever feels awesome for you. And you are also welcome, again, to bring in some support for that knee, if that feels right. That extended right leg could be straight, could be bent, could have a prop underneath it. If the leg is straight, we're flexing the toes back. If the knee is bent, then don't worry about that. That flexing back just activates a little bit to protect through the joints. If the knee's bent, we don't have to worry about that. All right, find that connection down to your sits bones. Move and adjust and get that solid base. From that base, lengthen up through the crown of the head, finding lift and extension. And then on an exhale, slowly start to fold forward. So coming forward, and maybe 50, 60%. You can bring in props to support you. Try this one out. Let's see how that works. Maybe not that one. So we are getting that forward fold, so we're getting some activation through the low back, a nice stretch there, some opening in the hips. Then you'll probably get a little inner thigh action, back hamstring, or I guess the hamstring is in the back. The hamstring behind the leg, behind that right leg. So just allow yourself to settle into this. And embrace any shaking that may appear in the body. That is definitely natural, part of the process. And continue to check in as we hold poses longer. Like I said, there might be a natural release, which oftentimes is welcome, because it can be a release of stiffness, release just in the muscle, creating a little more space. But sometimes that release can take us too deep, can take us into a place where it's going to start to cause issues, start to cause pain or potential injury. And our nervous system is pretty good at letting us know when we've reached that threshold. So don't push through it. Don't push through pain. Push through discomfort. As long as it's, not going to cause any bodily or emotional harm. But embrace being outside of your comfort zone. Notice your relationship to your body, to the pose, as you breathe and find ease in discomfort. Which again, that both and. By the very definition of uncomfortable, there shouldn't be ease in it. But there can be both. A few more rounds of breath here. As you feel ready, nice and slow, we'll start to make our way back up out of our forward fold, setting aside props, clearing some space for our counter stretch. Now for the counter stretch, again, you can just bring the left hand behind you, planting, for a more gentle option, both hands back behind you, opening through the chest and kind of creating a little arch in the back, just kind of a little counter stretch there. If you want to take it a little bit further by lifting through the hips, then maybe you're going to swing that right arm up and around, lift through the hips as you plant the left knee, pointing through the right toes, finding this variation of wild thing. So we're opening up through the front side of the body, either with the hips lifted or with them set down. Beautiful work, and as you feel ready, slowly start to set it down. Slowly come out of this pose. Oh, just kidding, we've got the stretch, or the twist. Let's keep that right leg extended. Drawing the left knee in towards the chest. This is where we're either gonna twist, or you could cross that foot over, if that feels okay. Left hand comes behind you for a little kickstand support. Inhale to lengthen up through the crown of the head. Find that extension upwards. And then exhale, start to draw that left shoulder back, letting that facilitate the twist. So we keep an opening in the chest. That right elbow could hook onto the knee. And again here, 50 to 60%. So even if you can, full exorcist here, don't do that. Just take it nice and easy. Continue to breathe into the belly. Feel the sensations of your breath. Beautiful work. One more deep round of breath here. And then to come out, once again, we'll find that length. Inhaling to lengthen up through the crown of the head. Exhaling to gently untwist. You can uncross through that leg if it was crossed, and then feel free to move through any counter stretches, any movements would feel awesome here. Again, you could revisit those windshield wipers, knee side to side, a little glute massage included. Taking some cat-cow, seated cat-cow here, working through some spinal articulation, arching and rounding, or anything else that the body is craving. Kind of playing with the same idea of the tree pose with the legs, just kind of switching it up. So we are going to come onto the belly, but start from hands and knees. because we want to have this set up first. So from hands and knees, we're going to take our bolster, rolled up blanket, anything that's going to give you some lift here. We're going to set it off to the right side of our mat. And then we're going to start to come forward onto the belly, lowering ourselves down. And then where the tree pose look is going to come in, is we're going to bend the right knee and bring it up onto our bolster, our cushion, whatever it is. And you want to try to have the full lower leg supported. So from knee down to ankle, if you can, find a support. And a little bit of lift, if whatever you have going on, if it's too much of a lift, lower it down. And then we're going to come all the way down onto the belly and lay the head down. So it's not quite tree pose because our foot is not against the inner thigh, but that same opening in the hip is kind of what we're working with. And as you lie down on the belly, you're welcome to find what feels good for the head. You could turn onto either cheek. You could stack the knuckles and rest the forehead on the middle knuckle. You could bring in a blanket or a pillow, whatever feels awesome for you. And again, you can play with the height of the raising of that leg. And if it doesn't feel awesome, especially in the low back, to have that leg raised, feel free to not have a prop there and just come into this position flat on the ground. That may be enough sensation for you. And if being on the belly is not happening, just doesn't feel right, you can take this same pose on the back, knee bent, and find that opening. And if you're taking this option and have tighter hips, bring in a block or something to support that knee. Or bring in your full bolster to support that opening. So ideally, well, I don't want to say ideally, because whatever works best for you is ideal. Whatever's going to feel right in your body is ideal. So if it feels right, be on the belly with the knee up. If it doesn't, come onto the back. And you can kind of play with the angle of the knee here. The closer the knee is up towards the face, the more intense that opening is going to be. The further down, the less that angle and the less intense that opening is going to be. So take your time to kind of play with this and then allow yourself to find some stillness. Connect to your breath. And if one way that you're connecting to the breath is through deep belly breathing, then embrace the sensation of the belly pressing in on the mat. Feel yourself being supported by the earth. Maybe you can even feel or hear your heartbeat beating into the ground. Maybe that can be one of your focal points, one of your anchors to help keep you present. And stay connected to whatever emotions come up for you. And get curious about those emotions. Emotions aren't just arbitrary. They don't just appear out of nowhere for no reason. There's always a reason for our emotions. Multiple reasons that they exist. but they're always there for a reason. They're there as a warning system. They're there to show us work that needs to be done. They're there to teach us lessons, to help us grow, to help us evolve. And the thing with emotions is they are on their own agenda. And they are not going anywhere until they have accomplished that agenda. So if we choose to hide them, to force them down, to try to ignore them, that's not part of their agenda. So they will persist until they are heard, until they are felt, until they are expressed. So allow those emotions to be expressed, to be felt, to be acknowledged, and to get to share with you their purpose, their reason for being there. A few more rounds of breath here. As you feel ready, we're going to take this into a twist, supported twist. So if it feels good, one way to get into this is to start to raise the upper body up and just high enough to where you can start to kind of scooch that left side body underneath. And so you can start to kind of come to lie on the back, leaving that knee, the right knee, up on the bolster, blanket, whatever configuration you've got, and finding a twist. Now know that you can stay on the left side body and just have a nice gentle twisting here. You can play with the intensity of the twist. You can start to invite that right shoulder towards the ground. It definitely doesn't need to touch. Again, we don't need to go full bore into this. But just kind of find what feels right in your twist. And if you're like me and have some low back issues that do affect your twisting, trying to keep my knee on that bolster doesn't feel awesome. So turn that bolster up on its side, bring in another extra few stacks of pillows or blankets or whatever you got going on so that you can find a twist that feels awesome for you. Find your breath. Another thing that you can do is that left leg can stay extended, or if stacking the knees and twisting that way feels better for you, feel free to take that, or have that cushion or bolster between the knees as you find your twist. Ooh yeah, that's what's feeling awesome for me right now. Embracing your twist. About 5 or so more rounds of breath here. And as you feel ready, just gently making your way out of your twist, coming onto the back. So you can move any props out of the way. Slowly starting to shift onto the back and take any movements between sides that would feel good. From here, you could take another round of windshield wipers in the recline position. You could draw the knees in towards the chest, maybe circling through the knees. You could take a happy baby. Anything else that would feel awesome here. And when you feel ready, we're going to start to set that up on the other side. So however you'd like to transition to that, if you want to come back up to hands and knees, or if you just want to roll onto the left side. But we do want to, again, bring the bolster or cushion, stack of blankets, whatever we got going on to the left side of the mat. Coming onto our bellies. Kind of into a sphinx pose to get it set up. We're going to bend that left knee, placing it on top of our cushion. And again, you can kind of play with, the closer the cushion is up to the head, the more intense it's going to be in the hip. And the further down you press, the less intense it'll be on the hip and the low back. And stay in tune if there's compression in the low back. If it doesn't feel great in the hip, then maybe your lift is a little too high. Maybe your body just doesn't want any lift on this side today. So you can also remove that prop and just come into this kind of fallen tree pose. And of course, if being on the belly doesn't feel awesome for you, just flip it over. Really fancy yoga move here. Flipping over onto the back. And then bringing in that bolster to support the opening on the belly or on the back. So, lots of options to explore. And as you get the leg situation figured out, then we'll lower all the way down, maybe turning onto either cheek. You could rest the hands or rest the head on the hands. You could bring in a blanket, a pillow, anything to help you settle in to your pose on this side. And take your time to set it up. And then we want to try to find some stillness in the pose so that we can allow for that deep stretching, that deep release. But again, stay in tune. Don't feel like once you've settled into stillness, you're locked in and you can't move. Of course, listen to the body. And if the body starts to release and to open and to create more space, as the body moves into that space, stay aware. Because sometimes that can take us a little too deep. Listen to the warning signs in the body. Our nervous system is great at doing that. Also notice any resistance that may come up, especially if you are finding this to be uncomfortable. Now, there is a big difference between uncomfortable and pain. So we want to embrace uncertainty, embrace uncomfortability, embrace pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone, physically, mentally, emotionally. But we don't want to harm ourselves. We don't want to harm the body. We don't want to harm the mind. So it all comes down to awareness. Checking in, noticing, breathing, observing. About 5 or so more rounds of breath here. As you start to feel ready, we'll begin to transition into our twist. So we want to, for on the belly, raise the body up. Just enough so that we can kind of scooch that right side body underneath. And maybe you come to the side body, nice gentle twist. Or you could start to open up a little more through the chest, inviting that left shoulder down towards the ground. And we want to maintain the support of the leg with the bolster, but again, leaving it where it is may not feel awesome. So you can add to your stack if you do have a bolster or cushion that you can turn onto the side to give yourself a little more height. You could also stack the knees in your twist and let them rest on the prop, or bring the prop in between the knees. And yeah, just like on the first side, this is what is feeling best for me. And we want to check in with the body, continuing throughout our practice. Because not only is our practice going to change constantly with the changing of our bodies, but each side of our body is different, is asymmetrical. And there are lots of reasons for that too. Some of them naturally occurring, some of them are out of our control, some of them are things that we can work with. But we want to get to know those differences, and the way to do that is to honor each side, to not force the same shape as one side versus the other, to really embrace each side for its own uniqueness, allowing your body to be both and. Finding your breath and your twist. We'll be here for about 7 rounds of breath. Continue to breathe, playing with your connection to breath. Feeling your body. Embracing your emotions. so interesting to me how often human beings try to deny that we are emotional creatures. And don't buy into the bull crap that it's just women that are emotional. It's part of the human experience. Emotions are not a bad thing. Emotions should be embraced, they should be celebrated, not hidden, not pushed away, pushed aside. And the stronger relationship that we can build with our emotions, the more better we're able to navigate those. I've personally been accused of being overly sensitive, and it's taken me a while to embrace that as a superpower. It means that I am connected to my humanness and to the humanness of others. So, my fellow oversensitive beings, my fellow emotional beings, every one of us, embrace those emotions, embrace your feelings, get to know them. Don't be afraid of them. Don't hide them away in shame. They are a part of who you are. As you feel ready, we'll slowly start to come out of our twists. Gradually making our way onto our backs. And again, feel free to take any movements that would feel awesome, resetting through the spine, resetting through the hips. Any movement that would feel good here. And we're gonna take one more pose. So as you feel ready, we're just going to come into a reclined cobbler's pose. So we've been working with the hips open one at a time. We'll finish with both hips opening. So we're going to bring the bottoms of the feet to touch and allow the knees to drop open. Check in with the body because there are lots of ways that you can support yourself here. You can take your bolster or cushion. You can slide it underneath the knees for support. You can raise the feet up on them, which kind of makes it a little easier on the low back. You can also bring in your blocks or anything else to support the knees. And check in if there is compression and pain in the low back. A couple things that you can do to kind of play with that. One is to bring the knees together, lift through the hips, tuck the pelvis down, lengthening through the tailbone, and then as you set it down, letting the low back kind of spread out across the mat. So you're taking out that curvature of the low back and setting the hips down and then opening up through the hips. So that's one thing that you could explore. Another way to support compression or pain in the low back is by bringing in support of the lumbar spine, the mid-back. So exaggerating that arch, lifting through the chest, tucking the shoulder blades underneath so that you have even more arch there that helps to bring a little lift out of the lumbar spine, out of the low back, and then finding your opening in pigeon pose. Excuse me, not pigeon. This is not pigeon, cobbler's pose. So, however you'd like to support yourself here.
allowing this opening in the hips. And if you are hypermobile, if you can open up the knees all the way to the ground and feel nothing, which is a lot of us, me not included, but there are a lot of us out there, a lot of hypermobiles out there. You don't need to stretch the opening in the hips. What would better suit you is to build up strength and support around the hip joints. So if your knees, like I said, open all the way and you're not getting any benefit out of this, then press the feet together and hover the knees just a couple inches above. This is going to be more activating, but this is going to help those with hypermobile hips to build support around those hips. So we're not just exploiting those joints, but actually creating some support. So that is just for people that maybe experience hypermobility or have just very open hips. And we've only got about 5 more rounds of breath here. And then when you start to feel ready, we will make our transition into our Shavasana, or our final relaxation. So take your time getting out of this pose. One nice thing is bringing the hands down to the inner thighs and just giving the hips a little assistance, drawing the knees in. Take any movements, revisit anything that we have been to, or explore something that we didn't get to. Listen to the body, give it anything it's asking for. And then as you feel ready, starting to set up our Shavasana, or our final relaxation pose. And this is yogi's choice. I mean, in my classes, everything is yogi's choice. But Shavasana, just like every other pose, you don't have to conform to it. You don't have to do it any certain way. The idea is to surrender. So if traditional corpse pose, lying on the back, toes turned out, palms turned up, feels like a good pose for you tonight to surrender to, take that. If it doesn't, explore something else. You could bring in support underneath the knees with the bolster. You could lie on your side, lie on your belly. Come to a seated meditation. Use props to support you in any way, in any position that you can surrender to, that you can allow yourself to release, to relax, and to be. So take your time to set that up, whatever it looks like. As you settle into your final relaxation, let yourself go. Allow the body to release, to be held, to be supported in this space. Allow your breath to just find its natural flow. Allow the mind to settle into the peace of the present.
And if the mind is not settling, then at least allow yourself to not be attached to that. Allow yourself to witness whatever it is that comes up for you. To witness the complexities of your mind-body. Allow yourself the gift of this time to just be. You have more time to dedicate to your Shavasana, to this time to just be. Please give yourself that gift for at least 5 more minutes, upwards of 20 to 30. As you feel ready, gently start to bring some movement back into the body. Nice and slow, no rush, be gentle. Slowly starting to wake the body back up. If you are lying down and not already there, you're welcome to roll onto one side of the body. You can pause here in a nurturing pose for as long as you'd like. Embracing the comfort of this pose, little homage to the first yoga pose we ever took. As you feel ready, making your way back up to a comfortable seat. I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or to take any other meaningful gesture with the hands as we close our practice. I offer you this moment to give yourself some gratitude for carving out this time, for stepping on your mat, for your willingness to embrace the complexities of your soul, the complexities of your mind-body, the complexities of your emotions. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.